So yes, you are fired up.
Okay.
Us too.
So it is 6:30 now. We've got some people in here. I think that we're good to officially get started. So I'll go first and introduce myself and Integrative Counsel. I'm Allie. I'm the office manager and editor-in-chief at Integrative Counsel. And we're here with Carina today, who's a communications coach. And she's one of our visiting professionals, which is similar to a visiting professor. And like the concept of the visiting professor is that a professor with like a unique, specialized piece of knowledge, I'd say, works at a university for a short amount of time, and then they go on their way and they teach valuable things to the student at that university, but it's a short period of time. So a visiting professional at Integrative Counsel is like a clinician or a coach or an artist that just has their unique, specialized piece of knowledge that we don't have. And Carina's is the lovely communication. And that's like something in line with our mission, is making mental wellness accessible through multiple touch points. And that this is one of our ways of making it accessible, is providing you guys with a free live workshop that'll help you learn what to do when you're in a family gathering and you want to be your authentic self, but you also don't want to cause trouble. So this is Carina. Carina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, and thank you. You already introduced me. So lovely. So I'm Carina, and I'm the mom of a 7-year-old, which you probably hear in the background. And there's a chance that she may say hello at one point too. I live in Brooklyn with my family and our family puppy. And you may hear it. I'm not from the US. I'm from Germany. I worked as a nurse about 10 years in Germany and then switched into communication. I teach now students in Germany and here in the US in health communication. And I started to really fall in love with not just the interpersonal communication, but most of all, the inner communication and how we can talk to ourselves, how we can resource ourselves, and also how we can heal ourselves after we experience some rougher encounters with others.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. It's wonderful to have you here today. Do you want to just jump into the questions?
Yes, let's do this. Thanksgiving is not going to wait for us.
Exactly. So the first question that I have is, how do I diffuse combative language? Like, you never see me.
Yeah. Well, you jump right into the hot waters of being in a situation where we hear something that makes us getting tense and maybe not even sure how we want to react now. So if you are okay with it, I would almost want to back up a little bit.
Yeah.
And before we imagine we are at the family table, what I would really invite everyone to do is to prepare before the meeting a little bit. And there are a few things we can do so that if a sentence like that comes our way, we are a little more settled and ready for it. And so the first I would say is getting real clarity around what a realistic expectation is. I would say if I had in the past family meetings, certain encounters with certain peoples, it's probably fair to say that something similar may happen again. So just having clear in my head, who would I likely meet? What is that person likely going to say? How will I potentially react? Is there something that's especially dear to me this year, or where I feel like especially raw or vulnerable, to kind of highlight that too already? And then to just really set myself an intention. And I give you an example. So it could be that I come with the intention to not lose an argument, that I'm going to go to this dinner and I just wait for this uncle to come with his theory about something. I'm ready, right? And that will be a total different experience than if I come with an intention of, oh, I just want to celebrate. I just want to be with loved ones. And I will likely have the experience that with some people I click more than with others. And I know where at the table I may want to sit. But my intention is that I want to connect or that I want to celebrate. It will get me a different outcome than if I have this intention, oh, I have 5 arguments ready to go if someone comes and argues with me about vaccination or whatever it is, right? So that is going to be super helpful. And we can even communicate that up front. Like if, just as a little fun fact on the side, before I was married, it was a very important topic to my parents, how my love life is going, right? And of course, I mean, come on. And so it might be helpful to call them up before and say, hey, you know what? I have a big favor to ask. I really look so much forward to come and be with you. But I also notice I'm a little sensitive around the whole topic of having a boyfriend or not having a boyfriend. I just want to be with you and see you and celebrate with you. Would it be okay if we just not talk about that this time? How is that for you? And so by that we kind of are able to set our boundaries even before we are thrown into something.
You can just prepare in advance and set your expectations realistically.
Yeah, and really also prepare for if something goes downhill. Like I have an empathy buddy, and it's funny because we never met in person, but we know each other for 4 years now. But we became empathy buddies through a program, and we have very regular calls, and also emergency calls. If something goes downhill, I can call her and I can be like, I need empathy right now. Can you listen? And it's amazing how that can like get you back and resource you. So think about who that could be for you.
That empathy buddy is an agreed upon relationship between 2 people, correct? Where they just kind of vent to each other.
Yes, and there's a difference between venting and really reflecting on, man, I'm so hurt right now because what that person said to me is really so hurtful because it goes against my value of tolerating, even though if we have different opinions. Like so really reflecting on what's going on in my body, why, what is behind it, what matters to me so much, and for the empathy buddy to reflect. And if you don't have one, don't panic. It can be a friend, of course. But maybe also be specific and say, hey, you know what? I don't need your advice. I don't need reassurance. Could you just be with me where I am right now and just reflect with me on how I'm feeling right now? That's often more resourceful than if the other person goes into, oh my God, this is what you should say next. And then you do this and that, because it's really not.
You can't go back. You can't go back and change it. You just need to verbally process it and reflect. And then oftentimes when you do that with someone, you can come to your own solutions and conclusions on your own. You can tell yourself what to do next time.
Exactly. And these little pauses we can take all the time. Like we can even, there's always an excuse to use the restroom, right? Or depending on how comfortable we are, we can even say, you know what, I just noticed, oh, that was a lot to talk about. I think I go for a walk. Right? And really take these pauses and get clear for yourself what's going on. Because if you're clear what's going on for you, you can give yourself empathy too. And that is actually really awesome because then you don't need anyone around it. And the whole concept is just making sense to our own nervous system, where I can say, of course you are pissed right now.
Mm-hmm.
What is this person thinking? It's so important for me that we celebrate this family gathering here. And why is politics even a topic today? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you can do that for yourself, it gets you back out of this reactive.
Yeah, you can kind of, you're your mom and dad now, so you have to, you're the mom, you're the dad, and you're the baby, so you have to soothe and validate yourself.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
100%. And then from there we have two options, and that speaks towards your initial question. What if you are faced with some judgment or some just really hurtful comment? And the two choices we have, besides deciding not to engage, which is a total valid option, by the way, is I can listen with curiosity, and I say a little more about that, or I can express how far I want to go and where my boundaries are.
Mm-hmm.
And with the listening, this is really cool, and it takes a little time to really get into that mindset. But when you hear something, see if you are able to not focus so much on what is said,
Mm-hmm.
but what need might be behind it.
Yes.
So, as an example, when my dad talks in front of other people about that I'm really doing well, it's just that I seem to not be able to find and hold a man in my life. Instead of focusing on the what and being like, Dad, this is so inappropriate. And would you even say that? I had like, why would I go down that road, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I could say, Dad, I think you just really want me happy and that I'm protected in this world, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And so that lets us connect.
Yes.
But I also,
it's that common humanity.
Yes, and I can even say, I'm so grateful for all the protection you gave me, and that you still want to protect me. I want safety too, but I think I have a different strategy than you. And my strategy is not a husband.
My strategy is not a husband.
Right?
I see that you mean well. You acknowledge their the goodness that comes from their heart, but set that boundary.
Because then the door is open. Then my dad doesn't feel like he has to be defensive or he feels hurt. It's like, from there we can also play a little more with it or bring some lighter tone in it, and we can connect to that need of safety, and we can start talking about stories when he protected me in the past and how awesome that was.
Yeah, and when it was really needed and he protected you, then you can tell him how grateful you are for that. So when family members try to guilt you, just find their common humanity, find the goodness in their words, and still set that boundary with them.
Exactly. And I mean, let's face it, there are many difficult moments that make listening hard. One example that comes to mind is that there is a relative in my family that believes in a religion that is not for me. But it comes up at every family gathering.
Yes.
And so by now I can listen and say, I really hear how important that is to you. And you know what? I'm happy you found that. I really am. I also noticed, though, that it's not mine. And I would much rather know how your vacation was this year.
Yeah.
So again, I can say, hey, I hear you. I know what's going on for you, but it's not mine.
Yeah. And I'm not going to stop talking to you because of that. I'm just going to direct the conversation to where we can both have an enjoyable time and be authentic.
Exactly. And sometimes if it's hard for us to fully understand, we can try a metaphor. I don't know if you know that situation, but sometimes you may be caught in a conversation where someone seems to just go on and on and on about something that's really hard for them. Right? And usually when people go on and on and on, it might be, it's because they don't feel I get it yet.
Yeah.
And a metaphor that is fresh, like not something that you hear all the time, but that's like new, is sometimes helping the other person to feel like, oh wow, someone really gets it. So I could say like, oh wow, you know, I listen to you, and I really wonder if it's like almost like drowning in an ocean of concerns right now for you. And so I don't have to come back to the what. It just matters that I can show, hey, I get it.
I know why you feel this way.
Right. Like and I don't even have to say that. I don't even have to say, because that would be like, how would I even know, right? Like there might be so much going on, but making guesses and then also checking in is a really solid choice to see if we connect. And so that is, but so this listening, that is one idea. And the other one is really to be clear about, you know what, these are my boundaries.
Yeah.
Right. And that's important too. We can't just be understanding. There will be a time when we also have to say, you know, just checking with me, I notice I hit my point where it's enough. Right. Yeah. And we can do that without burning bridges. What I found it's tricky is if I wait too long. If I wait too long and I get this tension, and then it might come off really strong. So I really try to be early when I notice like something is off.
Yeah.
To just mention, you know.
Yeah.
Not
Before
so cool.
you start building resentment and blow up and want to walk away.
Exactly. And I think it's totally fair to say, you know, I'm here and I'm so happy I'm here, and you are here, and all of us are here, and I really look forward to celebrate. And I feel like if we keep talking about that issue right now, it's gonna be really tough for me.
Yeah.
Would you be willing? Can we just change the topic? I'm really done right now on that.
Yeah. And what would you do if it was like a high, intense emotional situation? How do you navigate that while speaking your truth, but not sacrificing your values?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think if it's emotionally getting hotter, I may actually take the freedom to say, you know what, I feel this is really impacting me now, and I wonder if we can take a little moment and a break. I think I go for a walk, and let's see if I feel up for continuing this conversation or not. Often we have this reflex that we have to say something immediately or we lose. And again, if we have the intention, we go into a family event winning or losing, it's going to be really tough.
Yeah.
But if I come with this idea, I want to connect, but I also want to have a good time. And I want to be okay. I can say that. I can say, you know, I feel this is really getting to me right now, and there's a lot coming up for me, and I want to make sure I answer your question, or I say something to your statement that that feels right. So I need a little time here.
Yeah.
And then if you are in that spot where you had a little time to also reflect of why that is, why it's so
Yeah.
important to me, why am I hurt, I can also say that, and I can say, I felt before, I felt so upset because it's so important to me that I'm heard, or that I'm accepted, or it really matters to me that I'm part of this family, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that
Yeah.
hurt. But if I take these pauses, I can be very clear about what was going on for me,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm willing to continue with that conversation, or if I'm like, for today, let's just change topics. I
Yeah.
think that might be better.
Yeah. So in those situations, just get right with yourself, because that's who you can control. You can't control what your other family members do. You can only know yourself and how you feel. So
Yeah. And there are moments when someone else is very invested in something, right? And they
mm-hmm.
may continue, or they
Yeah.
may start talking loudly to someone else, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't change it for you.
Exactly.
And then it's really okay to say, I remember I brought it up twice today, and it seems to be just really important to you to keep talking about that. And there's nothing I can do. But for me, that means that my time here is over. Like, there might be this point where you have
Yeah.
to also make a call about, are you hurt in your needs? And if not, is it easier to just take a longer break and be clear about, I think for
Yeah.
today, we got it.
Yeah.
And it's tough, right? Because we don't want to hurt someone. And
No.
I remember we had a tough situation in our family when my daughter was born. We got the recommendation from our physician that
Mm-hmm.
people that are in close contact with her get vaccinated for whooping cough. Whooping
Mm-hmm.
cough, I
Yeah.
pronounce this right?
Whooping cough.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a family member that didn't feel like that's a good idea for her.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that was tough, right? Because of course we want her to be close to our daughter.
Yeah.
But at that point we had to communicate, we totally accept your decision. At this point, it's too much risk for us to carry.
Yeah.
We are not comfortable with the risk towards our newborn, and we're really gonna miss your party. We really love coming to your parties, but
Yeah.
this year we're gonna miss it. And that is not always easy to swallow.
No.
But I think it's important that we can share what's at line for us, and then it becomes also more understandable. I'm not just calling and say, well, because you don't get vaccinated, we're not going to come. That's a
Mm-hmm.
total different approach. And if I
Yeah.
say the risk is too much for us to carry, it's about my need,
Mm-hmm.
and about me trying to change someone to do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. If you make it about them, they'll get defensive. And if you make it about you, then there's nothing that they can defend against.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's really also important to recover. Like if you, and that's my last key point. Um, if we are at an event, to just be gentle to ourselves,
Yeah.
and give ourselves time to heal afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And when you, I was just thinking of what you were saying about the family member that wouldn't get vaccinated. Um, that can be something that you can feel really guilty about when you
yeah.
miss out on certain family members' parties. How do you recover from feeling guilty about not seeing certain family members during the holidays?
Mm-hmm.
when you have to say no and set a boundary.
Right. You know, in the most ideal situation, we can mourn that together.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, we could come together um, and reflect what it means for both of us. Ideally, I could share how much I mourn that she will not hold my daughter in that moment,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because it means really a lot for me. And maybe she can mourn the same thing, right? And we are again at like the universal needs that we all have. It's just that we have different strategies to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are able to remove ourselves from this thinking of, but that person should, or
Yeah.
I should, and that is something else super important. And I would love to talk a little more about the I should.
Yes.
But if I can get out of that mindset and really think about why it hurts in me,
Mm-hmm.
and mourn what is not met right now,
Yeah.
that gives me a lot of relief.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite cool. There is a lot of neuroscientific research around how alone naming emotions and naming needs can lead to self-regulation and our nervous system to be okay. And and so that's definitely a tip I would say is a good thing to do. And again, if the other person is not open to that at that point, then I may do it for me and for my
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, I think that's the key. That's the key takeaway for all of it when we think of family gatherings and conflicts in general. It's really not so much about the other persons
Mm-hmm.
and how I may be able to get someone to do certain things or not. It's much more about how grounded I am,
Yes.
and if I'm able to translate these judgments into what's really important for me,
Yes.
um, and and then also to really look with some awareness of what's going on inside of me. And that's what I meant with the inner judgment of really thinking, how does it sound in my head? And you mentioned that with guilt and what may come up afterwards, right? Like, am I telling myself, oh my gosh, what kind of daughter or niece
Yeah.
or granddaughter are you, that
Yeah.
you are not going there? I mean, are you kidding? You should have really treated your family different. And like, so we have these inner voices that come up. And the beauty is, if we get to know these inner voices, we kind of see that their job, and they are really good at that,
Yeah.
is to protect us from further harm. They are like, Carina, I know you got hurt in the past. Let me make sure this is never going to happen again. And so what sounds like this really harsh critic, sometimes like a whole, I mean, it's not just one, it's like,
No, a whole gang of them
it's
all up in
full.
the brain.
Um, and then to really think about, okay, well, what what is the voice really want, and acknowledging that can calm
Yes.
the voice itself as well.
Yeah, because the voice is just a newborn baby. It's a scared newborn baby with all of these strange beliefs that it's attached onto, and that's why it yells so much. It doesn't always know what it's talking about.
Well, yeah, but I see, for me, my voices, they 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 have different ages, to be honest with you,
Yeah, that's a
right?
good
Like,
point.
there are some that are really young,
The
but
very
then
childish sounding. For me, when it sounds like a bratty little kid, I know it's like my younger self that's needs didn't get met.
right, that could be, and for me, often it sounds, there's a sense of like feeling really alone, and
Yeah.
it's very existential, that
Mm-hmm.
feeling. And I see that with my clients too, that come for the resonant healing work, where we look
Mm-hmm.
exactly at that, where you start in the past, not that long ago. You may come and say, I was at that family event and I got so hurt from my grandma who said that to me, and I don't know how to move from there.
Mm-hmm.
And we start to work with what happened in that moment, but then
Yeah.
often other memories pop up if you check in with the body and what's held in the body on still sensations and then emotions, and we
Mm-hmm.
go further back and further back. And so we work with different stages
Yeah.
in our experience, and that really explains why sometimes there is a sentence that doesn't seem to be that bad for others,
Mm-hmm.
but we find ourselves breaking down crying
Yeah.
because we come with our own backpack, and there might be things in there that are just not healed yet.
Yeah. They get triggered, and other people don't always know what's in our backpack. They don't always know um, what's gonna set off one of the little bombs in our backpack, our emotional bombs. Um, so that's something to think about too. I think when you're in family gatherings, is that everybody has their own backpack. Everybody has something that triggers them, and it's different from everybody else, and it's kind of invisible to everybody. So just keeping that in mind too, like of your own, all you can think about is your own backpack and what you're carrying and how you can take care of yourself if that gets triggered.
Right, right. And it helps when we at least know what's hiding.
Mm-hmm. If we know what's hiding, we know what we can do to soothe it.
Yeah, yeah.
And we have our own special toolbox of things that we do when someone sets off one of our bombs.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I see a friend from Germany. Hi, Christian. It's so late for you.
I'm gonna look and see the other questions.
Yes. Let's hear from.
Here's another one. What to do if situations become stagnant instead of volatile? When everyone's just sitting.
Oh, you were cutting out, Ellie. Ellie, I don't hear you.
Let's see. Wait a sec. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. That's
Okay,
perfect.
cool. Do you want me to reread the question?
Yes, I think I got the beginning of like what to do if suddenly everyone is silent, and it probably feels very uncomfortable as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're, I feel like it's when you're trying to have a conversation with extended family members or family members that you don't see all the time, you don't live with them anymore. Maybe it's your parents and you used to live with them, but you don't. And it's just a stagnant situation.
Yeah. Well, it depends how comfortable I am, but I may even mention that. I may even say something like, "Hey, Ellie, you know what? It's so funny because I don't know what to tell you right now, but I just want you to know that I was really looking forward to seeing you. It's been so long ago, and you are my cousin, and I have the funnest memories of us having sleepovers at our grandmother's. But I also noticed I don't know you anymore. It really, there was some time passing, and I'm just curious how you are."
Yeah. And maybe just thinking to yourself or saying to them, like, things have changed since we were kids, and just like trying to diffuse that awkward tension. I feel like going into family gatherings can be awkward sometimes, especially when
Mm.
you're seeing family members that you don't see all the time, and you don't want it to be surface level conversations, but you also don't want to go into a territory that's like too deep and too personal, even though they're family
Mm.
members. I feel like that's a challenge that I run into when I'm going to family gatherings with extended family is I want to connect with them as my authentic self, but I haven't seen them in so long that I feel like they might not be familiar with my authentic adult self. They've only known maybe my kid self.
Yeah.
And now when you're a kid, you don't think about how you present yourself. You just present yourself how you're going to present yourself. And then as an adult, you have to think about how you can present yourself in different ways. So what would you do in that situation where you're trying to be authentic, but you're also, you don't want to be awkward and like, you don't want to treat them like an acquaintance, but they're also not very close to you.
Right, right. And you don't want to talk about the weather all day.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to
Yeah.
talk about the weather, but you also don't want to talk about how you're not married yet and, you know, have like the career, you're not making enough money. You don't want to like trauma dump on them.
That's right. Yeah, and then what often happens is we kind of hide behind a glass of wine or two,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
or we are on the screen,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I will come back to what we mentioned right at the beginning about what is it that I would love to receive or to give at that meeting. And if connection and some exchange is part of it, I may even want to think about, okay, what are things I'm comfortable with and things that I have no problem sharing, and what are things that I would rather not bring to this event. So I have some clarity already, and I don't have to sit at a table and then start talking about things because I feel pressured, even though
Mm-hmm.
I may not actually enjoy that.
Yeah. So what are the things that you feel are like good information from your family members, things that they would be interested in
I
hearing?
see. You want the real content about what to talk about. Okay. You know, that really depends on the history of the people itself. Like I have an uncle, and I would say we don't have much in common besides that he lived in New York throughout his childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I live in Brooklyn, and we have the funniest conversations just about random parks and streets and
Mm-hmm.
where he got his bagels and things at the time and where
Yeah.
we go. And so there are always some hooks or some denominators that are common or more in common. It could be
Mm-hmm.
kids, it could be dogs, it could be a hobby, like maybe you just tried out something new, like you went to a pottery class and that was actually pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems a low risk to share
Yeah.
how your pottery
Yeah,
went.
but it still is revealing something
It,
about
it
you
is
that's
it
not.
is you. It's not just it's real. And I
Yeah.
think that's what the difference comes in, because we feel that from each other, right? Like
Yeah.
if I just start chattering because I feel uncomfortable with the silence, or if I'm actually sharing something that meant something for me, and if I come with a real interest to learn something about you. And again, that doesn't have to be something spectacular. It can be
Yeah.
really mundane. I may know that, and often it's the same questions that come, right? That are hard to answer because you always get the same questions like, how is it going with your studies? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because people
Yeah.
don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
And so that could also be a great way to start thinking about in advance. Well, if she brings up the studies, then I don't really want to talk about what topics I study right now, but maybe I want to share that I found this fun study group and we decided to study together. And afterwards, we go to a pizza shop, and we try to get to every pizza shop in town by the end
Mm-hmm.
of the semester,
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? But
You switch it to something fun to talk about rather than.
or it's just something where you feel it gives you and the other person something. And if it's if it's a person like, there might be also a person with dementia, for example, right? Where it really doesn't, it's really not about what exactly it is that I share. It's more about sitting next to each other. And for that example, I would probably pull out my phone and go through some pictures of the things we did as a family the last couple of weeks, and just share some pictures and stories about what we did. And
that's a great idea. Looking at pictures triggers so many conversations and questions. And this comment says, that feels like an important key to go with true curiosity of the other, which I was thinking about that too while you were talking. Just preparing yourself beforehand with the intention to be open and curious and learn new things about people who are in your family. These are your ancestors. These are your blood, or they might not be your blood, and that's also okay too. But these are the people in your life that you that are going to be a part of your life for a long time. So even if you don't have everything in common, maybe not everyone in your family is highly compatible, you can still be like, this person's different than me. That's interesting enough for me, you know?
yeah, and as you say, it's not about being best friends and the closest possible with every person in the room. That if we come with that idea, it's very likely that that's not gonna work. But I bet with you that with every person, no matter how different or how outrageous in certain areas they may we may perceive them, there will be something that we can talk about and share. And
because you're family, and you all come from your family. You always have one thread that'll keep you smiling, even if you're in a high intense emotion situation sometimes.
That's right. And it's there might be points in time where, all of that said, there might be a point in time where it's also okay to say, I noticed our last couple meetings were really rough, and I don't know if I'm up for it this year, and I do want to stay in touch, and I do want to have some connections, but I feel spending Thanksgiving as a full day together is not what feels good to me right now. How is it for you? We can't force it, right? And if and I think that's also coming back to setting boundaries and having clarity around expectations. If finding the common ground and sharing something that's important to us and hearing something from the other person, if that still leads to hurt and pain, I may have to reflect on how to move from there. Because being authentic really means also being authentic with my needs. And what I can handle for what time and when.
It's about being authentic with yourself first, and then bringing that to the family gathering as your foundation. That's a good information. And I also would like to know how you would deal with the feelings that come up when interactions with your family bring you back to old childhood dynamics. So when you're an adult going back to maybe the house that you grew up in with your parents and your siblings, and things start to slip back to the old dynamic. How do you handle that?
Yeah.
Like maybe when you just moved, for example, when I moved out, for the first year after I moved out, my mom called my old room. She would still call it my room, even though I had my own apartment and everything. She'd be like, "I was just in your room the other day organizing," and I'd
Oh.
feel like, oh, it would hurt me a little bit because I'd be like, "That's not my room anymore," and I feel like I'm still like
Mm.
a child living in my parents' house. So that was hard for me for the first
Oh, I
couple
see.
couple
Okay.
holidays I was away. So how would you deal with those feelings that come up, and when your parents still treat you like you're their child living at home?
Yeah. Well, it's super interesting, and allow me just to get a little more clarity on w- where the pain came in. Was it about having not a shared reality that you don't live there anymore
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I have my own life, and
Hmm.
it's really sweet you kept that room, but I don't need it. I don't want it. I have my own room now.
Hmm. I'm an adult now, and it's like navigating a new family dynamic during the when you're
Mm-hmm.
rejoining during the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, so let's assume you come back home and you hear your mom saying, "Oh, I was just in your room." And for you, it's like, "Oh man, um, we are talking about two different things, or we are living on two different islands here." Um, let's assume you had time before to already resource you a little bit,
Hmm.
to clarity about, okay, I feel not taken super serious um, because and my need of independence and autonomy and respect is somehow not, I don't experience it to that degree I would like to. How does that sound
Yeah, yeah, that
about?
is that's in line. The lack of feeling, the lack of freedom, and like the lack of independence, I think, is the pain point in that situation.
I see. Okay. So what you could do if it feels available is reaching first for the longing of your mom.
Hmm.
If it's available, we can play different scenarios. But if we go with that, I would maybe say something like, "Oh, mom, are you missing having me in this house? Are you missing that this is my room?
Hmm.
And is it so important to you that you know that we're always going to be connected and that I will be your daughter until the end of the day?" And once your mom has some empathy for her situation and her reality, you may be able to say, for me, it's a little different. Can I share that with you?
Hmm.
I I experience almost like being a little trapped as a kid.
Yeah.
I really I will always be your daughter, and I love coming home and spending time with you, but I also notice I have a real need for you seeing me as a 20-year-old that
Hmm.
going out in this world. And it would be so sweet for me if you could show me that you trust me by just acknowledging that I live somewhere else and now I come as a visitor and not
Hmm.
I'm not living here. And
Yeah.
that would mean a lot for me. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful way to put that. To empathize with the pain that they might feel, and also set that boundary with them.
Yeah, and the understanding, because she may have no idea. She may think that it would hurt you if she turns that room into a home fitness center.
Mm-hmm.
And, and
Yeah.
so to just learn that that's how you experience it might be actually really freeing for her too.
Mm-hmm. It's okay to move on. It's okay to move forward. I think that it's another part of, gathering with family members is they see you as how you were when they last saw you, and they don't always acknowledge the changes that you might have gone through.
Yeah.
And that can be really hard to like stand up for the new version of yourself that they might not have ever met, and like
Mm-hmm.
introduce yourself again and again to these family members. I think that is where a lot of our pain comes from, is our
Yeah.
new selves don't always feel understood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's true. And it's often such a contrast when we come from our own created world and family, and
Mm-hmm.
we tap back into, yeah, almost the past, and we
Yeah.
have to explain what happened to us.
Yeah. I'm a new person in a way. Each time, every day, I'm a new person. So
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
go extended periods of time without seeing certain family members, they don't see your day by day growth, so they can get kind of
Mm-hmm.
confused when you reconvene, and they feel like they don't know you anymore, and then they say things that don't align with your current self, and it can be hurtful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
just, yeah, keeping in mind that you've changed and they just don't know that version of you yet, and you have to reintroduce yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And you can even use that as a starter to talk about, and say, I know we met each other a year ago, but you know what? I feel like there was so much happening in my life. It's almost like we didn't see each other 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was it like that for you when you were 21?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a great way to put it to them.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I think the final thought is really coming back to the self-love that that we can gather before we go into family situations. If we have resources, the more resources we have, and the better place we are, the easier it's going to be to navigate these waters that
Mm-hmm.
can be choppy at times.
Yeah.
And yeah, and to really remember that there is a way potentially to translate a judgment or to set a boundary, and to remember that this inner little critic that can be so harsh is there to actually protect us. And if we respond to it in a certain way, we can make it to our friend.
Yeah. It's all about managing that inner critic, which you know a lot about, I feel like.
It is. I find it super fascinating
Mm-hmm.
because I have a pretty good one.
Yeah. Yes. When you have
um,
a good inner critic, you get to know her quickly.
yeah, and yeah, no, and I'm super happy. I don't know. Do you wanna share yet with the crowd that we're gonna do a little bit more on that?
Mm-hmm.
Clarity. I'm just reading the last
Yeah,
comment.
that's true.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
long as we're clear on what we're going into, we can
Mm-hmm.
be successful, even if things go crazy and emotions are high. As long as you stick to your intention, you'll be successful. That's what I've gotten. One of the things I've gotten from this live.
Yeah, and just remember we are all humans, right? So again, even if I have the best intention and I'm super researched, um, it's not about doing it all perfect. but
Mm-hmm.
just noticing in my body when something doesn't go perfect, and then taking the times to pause and come back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it not going perfect is perfect in itself.
That's,
You will learn something from it not going perfect.
mm,
You'll see
yeah,
what you can do next time.
exactly.
Okay, see if there's any more questions. Or we answered them. Yes, we answered all the questions.
Oh,
Beautiful.
I'm glad. And I would love to hear some experiences in the, maybe in the comments or in the chat, if somebody tried something out and how that went.
Let us know your family experiences.
Yes.
We'll give you time to type though.
Oh, I mean later, probably, after Halloween, sorry, after Thanksgiving.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Oh. Hello, we have a new person in here. Okay. So for me, the biggest takeaway that I've gotten from this is to have my toolbox ready this Thanksgiving and make sure that I'm grounded before going in. Make sure that I know what might trigger me, being aware of my backpack of emotional bombs that might go off when family members say certain things. Staying steady and not letting the high intensity of emotions get me down. And if they do try to get me down, a walk is always there, no matter what.
Yeah. Well, see, I would love to send you some hearts, but I don't know how to do it if I'm on it.
Yeah, I can't send hearts. I wish I could. I've been wanting to send hearts this whole time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure
It was a pleasure.
to be with you and with all of you.
Yes, and thanks everybody for watching our live today.
Yes, thank you. And if you have more questions, DM us.
Yes, DM. If you have anything for questions for Carina, she is a communications expert, which she's proven today at our live.
All right. Thank you, Ellie.
Yeah. Have a good night. Bye,
You
everybody.
too. Bye.
Bye.